We'll start this morning with some big breaking news.
Amorim has been sacked, and the decision has sent shockwaves across the football world. For months, the writing seemed to be on the wall. The tension between the coach and the club hierarchy had been growing, the results were dipping, and the pressure from supporters was becoming unbearable. Yet, when the official statement finally dropped, it still came as a seismic moment that will shape the immediate and long-term future of the club. Rúben Amorim, hailed not long ago as one of the brightest tactical minds of his generation, had been brought in to lead the team into a new era. His appointment was meant to signify a shift toward modern football, pressing systems, adaptability, and a strong identity on the ball. For a while, that vision seemed clear and attainable. He injected belief into a squad that was often described as inconsistent, re-energized players who had been struggling, and earned early respect for his fearless decisions. But as is often the case in football, the honeymoon period didn't last forever. The cracks began to appear earlier this season. Performances dipped alarmingly against teams that the club should have been beating with relative ease. There were flashes of brilliance in some big matches, but overall, the consistency that defines top-level success was missing. The frustration among supporters grew with each misstep. Some fans accused Amorim of being too stubborn, too wedded to his system, unwilling to adapt to the realities of certain matches. Others believed the squad simply wasn't strong enough, and that he was being asked to deliver miracles with limited resources. Inside the dressing room, whispers of unrest emerged. Players who were once Amorim's staunch supporters reportedly grew frustrated at his refusal to deviate from rigid tactical ideas. He often insisted that the system itself was correct, and that failure came from poor execution rather than flawed design. For ambitious footballers, that message can feel like a dismissal of their effort, and slowly, the harmony between manager and squad began to erode. The board, for their part, faced a dilemma. Amorim had been their man, their bold appointment, and to dismiss him would be seen as a failure of their own judgment. But the results could not be ignored. Dropping points against rivals, early exits in cup competitions, and a sense of stagnation left them with little choice. By the time the last defeat came, a dismal performance that left fans booing loudly at full time, the boardroom consensus was that a change was unavoidable. The announcement of his sacking was framed in the usual corporate language: mutual agreement, gratitude for his work, wishing him success in the future. But nobody is fooled by those words. This was a brutal decision forced by results and circumstance. Amorim, a coach who had once been touted as a future manager of Europe's elite clubs, finds himself unemployed, and the club is left scrambling for a replacement in the middle of the season. Reactions have been predictably mixed. Some supporters are relieved, convinced that the club had been stuck in a rut and that only fresh leadership could restore momentum. Others are deeply frustrated, arguing that Amorim was let down by a lack of investment in the squad and deserved more time to implement his ideas. Neutral observers point out the irony of football's impatience: a manager hailed as visionary only a year ago is now deemed expendable, sacrificed at the altar of short-term results. What happens next for Amorim will be fascinating. At just 39 years old, he has plenty of time to rebuild his reputation. His coaching talent is not in doubt, his teams have often played attractive, structured football, and his ability to develop young players has been widely praised. He may need to reflect on the criticism of his inflexibility and learn how to adapt his tactical approach more readily. But in a football world hungry for fresh ideas, he is unlikely to be without offers for long. Smaller clubs in need of a clear identity or ambitious projects abroad could easily see him as the perfect candidate. For the club, however, the future is cloudier. A sacking of this magnitude always leaves scars. They must now search for a replacement capable of steadying the ship quickly, galvanizing a fractured squad, and winning back a frustrated fan base. Interim solutions might be considered, but the supporters will want clarity and ambition from the board. Names will inevitably surface, experienced managers with reputations for turning around struggling teams, as well as younger coaches eager for a chance. Whoever is chosen will inherit both an opportunity and a burden. Financially, the decision may also come at a cost. Amorim's contract was not insignificant, and compensation packages in football rarely come cheap. That expenditure, coupled with the potential cost of bringing in a new coach and possibly new players in January, could stretch the club's resources further. Supporters will demand assurances that the sacking is not merely a reaction to poor results but part of a coherent long-term strategy. Beyond the practical matters, there is a symbolic element to Amorim's dismissal. It highlights the relentless nature of modern football management. The lifespan of a coach at the top level is often brutally short. One season of underperformance can erase years of progress in the eyes of executives and supporters. The expectations are immense, and patience is scarce. Amorim is simply the latest victim of this unforgiving cycle, but he will not be the last. In truth, his tenure will be remembered as a story of potential unfulfilled. There were moments of genuine promise, matches where his tactical plan worked to perfection and the team looked like genuine contenders, but those moments were too rare, drowned out by the inconsistency that ultimately sealed his fate. Perhaps with more backing, more patience, or a different approach in the dressing room, things might have turned out differently. But football does not deal in hypotheticals, only results. Now, the club must prepare for life after Amorim. The next manager must not only repair the on-pitch issues but also rebuild trust between the squad, the board, and the fans. That is a monumental challenge, but one that cannot be avoided. The cycle continues, one manager out, another soon to arrive, and the hope of a new dawn just over the horizon. As for Amorim, his story is far from over. The sacking may sting, but it will also serve as a lesson. Football careers are rarely linear, setbacks often precede great comebacks. If he learns, adapts, and chooses his next project wisely, he could yet return to the spotlight stronger than before. For now, though, he leaves with unfinished business, his legacy at the club defined by both promise and disappointment. In the end, Amorim's sacking is not just about one man losing his job. It is about the wider realities of football, the clash between vision and results, patience and pressure, ambition and pragmatism. It is a reminder that in this sport, even the brightest lights can be dimmed swiftly, and only those who can continually adapt survive the storm.